Okay, nice. Yeah, let's get started. My name is Camille. Today I'm going to discuss about the P2P aspect of post-quantum signature aggregation. We are developing our client called Clean. So yeah, we really I'll try to give like some general picture, including like signature aggregation, 3SF, P2P. So yeah. Just quick reminder, what we have today is like we have very relatively small signatures which we aggregate, that we switch into signatures of size 3 kilobytes, and then we're also reducing our slot time from 12 seconds to 4 seconds. And yeah, just based on that, we can come up with a task. What we're going to do is collect and aggregate signatures from 8,000 validators in under 4 seconds. 8,000 is just some number to get started. Maybe in future, yeah, it will be larger. And in fact, we actually don't have even 4 seconds to perform aggregation. It's even less because we have other stuff to do during the slot. And the first approach that we kind of get started with is just doing something similar with what we do with BLS aggregation today, is split the network into the subnet. So validator belongs to some subnet, and then among these validators we have some portion of that also perform aggregation, and then they create a local aggregation which we call snark1, and then we have another subnet which performs global aggregation, where we actually create the final snark that goes to the block. And based on that, we can actually even calculate, given our existing requirement for the network, how long it's going to take to actually aggregate. Yeah, we have some numbers like our target is to have performance of 1,000 signatures per second aggregation, and also 10 snarks per second for the recursive aggregation of these snarks. We have bandwidth from EIP7870 of 50 megabits per second. So we can actually calculate that, well, for local aggregators to download enough signatures to perform local aggregation, it would take maybe 0.43 seconds. And then once they downloaded these signatures, then they spend some time for aggregation. Given this rate, it's like 0.9 seconds. And then global aggregators, they need to download the local aggregations, well, enough of these local aggregations so that they can prove the majority of all signatures. That's another 0.12 seconds, and then perform final aggregation of the snarks. With 10 snarks per second aggregation rate, it's another 0.6 seconds. So we can see that this is kind of the minimum theoretical time, like ignoring things like latencies between the nodes, like how many hops we actually need to perform to distribute the signatures. Obviously, we will need much more than that. That's just some unreachable target, but it kind of gives us some understanding of how long it's going to take for us to aggregate. And we see obviously that the two main bottlenecks we have is validator bandwidth and the snark creation speed, and we need to improve on that. So to actually simulate this kind of networks, we created our tool, which is called BeamSim. We have a report about our work. It goes very deep, like into different topologies that we tested, and into different assumptions like signature sizes, validator, number of validators in the network, number of aggregators, and checking like how these different parameters they actually affect the aggregation speed. So you can go and check if you're interested. In this work, we actually compare two main topologies. Is gossip sub is the most widespread topology that we use today for signature distribution, for block distribution in Ethereum. And the second topology that is not actually used in Ethereum today, but we just wanted to consider it. It's a grid topology. It's a more structured topology comparing to gossip sub, because in gossip sub we basically create these random connections, well, this mesh connections with some random peers, so the structure is really random. Whereas in grid, the structure is it's more structured. We basically put our participants into dimensional matrix, and they send all their messages to all of their column neighbors and row neighbors, and then all column neighbors send their message to all of their row neighbors. And this way we can actually send any signature, any message between any pair of peers in at most 2 hops. And at most we can have 1 duplicate per message. There are some disadvantages and drawbacks for this topology as well. So we compare this topology. So in our simulations we observed, for example, for gossip sub aggregators, they received 1.5 duplicates per signature on average before they perform aggregation, whereas for grid, they receive actually less than 1 duplicate. So in 50% of cases, they basically receive just 1 duplicate, and in most cases, there were no duplicates. Yeah, there are some differences in diffusion mechanism between gossip sub and grid topology. So in gossip sub, it is enough for validator just to sneak in and send just a single message to some neighbor. And then this message will be redistributed throughout the network. In grid, for the happy path, which I mentioned, which is just 2 hops, we need at very least to send the message to all of the row neighbors and all of the column neighbors. So it's a bit more messages. So there are some different assumptions that we make here. And also for gossip sub, the structure is random, and to add validators into gossip sub topics, they don't even need to expose their addresses. Whereas for grid topology, to come up with this 2-dimensional structure and to be aware of the addresses of all of the row column neighbors, we need to be aware of their addresses of the peers. We need to be able to punish them somehow, maybe reduce their reputation or do something in case they do not actually follow the rules of the grid topology. So and that creates some risks because, validators or participants of grid, they actually expose their addresses. And that's something that we don't have today for gossip sub. Just looking into the future and trying to see what and how we can actually improve in aggregation. So, assuming that we have Nielsen law saying that every year kind of the bandwidth limit increases 50%, maybe assuming like in 4 years, instead of having a bandwidth limit of 50 megabits per second, it could be 200 megabits per second. And that means, now aggregators can download their signatures and snarks 4 times faster. And now theoretical minimum time drops from 2 seconds to 1.6 seconds. Another thing is, that's kind of, great, we can increase the bandwidth. We maybe can assume that in 4 years, bandwidth will be higher, bandwidth limits. But it's not only that, because in our simulations, what we did, we actually checked how well gossip sub and grid topology actually utilize this bandwidth. And what we observed, for example, gossip sub topologies, this is green and red lines, once we, for example, switch from 100 megabits per second limit to 200 megabits per second, there is not really much improvement for gossip sub, whereas for grid topology, if we go further increasing the bandwidth, we actually still gaining some improvements here. For example, here, once we switch from 200 megabits per second to 200 megabits per second, grid topologies, they were able to aggregate like half a second faster, which is significant. We should be, we can rely on increasing bandwidth, but we also kind of need to choose proper topology that actually takes advantage of that. Another thing, it's probably arguable, but if we can assume that if we have really great P2P layer, and for example, we're making assumption that at least one aggregator in the network, or at least one aggregator in the subnet, actually runs GPU instead of CPU, so their aggregation time actually 10 times faster. We can actually take advantage of that as well, and also make calculations. So in future, if we, for example, can make 10,000 signatures per second aggregation and also increase bandwidth limits, then actually this time drops to 0.83 seconds, which is really nice, but that's again another assumption maybe worth discussing, like whether we can actually consider that in network someone can run GPU.
If we use a GPU, we could also use them to aggregate, and so the 0.6 would go down to 0.06.
Previously it was 1,000 signatures per second, so it took 0.9 seconds. Now it's point.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
we will also get a speed up for the SNOC aggregation.
Ah, okay, that would be really great. Yeah, I didn't know that, so, which is why here I'm learning. Yeah, then if we can improve this also can drop significantly. Yeah, maybe all of that, all of that I said. Yeah, what is great developing a client is now we see the full picture. So it was really helpful for us to learn about 3SF. And actually, one thing that we also need to take into consideration is actually how consensus works. We're not really sure 100% that we're going to use 3SF for lean consensus eventually. But for now, we're sticking with it and we're testing it. So yeah, let's consider what's happening in 3SF. In 3SF, we really split our slot into 4 intervals. And the first interval, second, is just spent for proposed stage. So someone creates a block and distributes it to all validators. And then we have voting stage. This is where these attestations actually being produced and is spread to the network. And the next stage is fast confirm. And for this stage, every validator should be able to observe at least supermajority of all signatures. And this is the problem because yeah, if we see this structure where we actually split our network into the subnets, well, validators, they do not really observe signatures from other subnets. And this is something that we actually need to take into account when we design the P2P layer, which we were not doing actually during BMC simulation, but now I think, yeah, we should do this, yeah. But yeah, this, and then, yeah, at the end of the slot, we should have the aggregation, which will actually be included into the block. Well, the thing here that the important thing is that validators should observe all the signatures. They not necessarily should have already the aggregation, but they at least need to see supermajority of all the signatures to be able to fast confirm, as I understand, and then have, well, this fast confirm will be used in the next slot to have vote target. Okay, this actually leads to some more questions. Maybe we can then even not to have, if this structure with subnet doesn't work, maybe we can get rid of the subnets, right? That's just, again, throwing some ideas, but yeah. In that case, for example, let's say again, we have the case with 8,000 validators. Now validators need to download supermajority of all signatures. Well, they can do this with this 200 megabits per second bandwidth limit in 0.62 seconds, theoretically minimum time. In fact, it's a bit larger. And after they do this, they're already able to fast confirm. This is the next stage of consensus. And then, yeah, they can spend the remaining time of the slot to actually aggregate the signatures. Yeah, and here, to do this without subnet, we need to have really, really fast signatures aggregation, like 10,000 signatures per second. For example, which we can have, but for that to work, yeah, we need to have GPUs, obviously, and that's again, like, yeah, the assumption that we should make. If we cannot make this assumption, yeah, there are some other alternatives, like we can have very large single subnet for all validators, but for them, when they spread their signatures, they do not only send them to their neighbors, but they also explicitly, well, they know the address of at least one aggregator for the subnet. Well, subnet is only formed for the aggregators, so validators, they send signatures between each other for this fast confirm that we need, and then they also send to at least one aggregator, which then performs this two-step aggregation step. Well, they can use grid topology for that, the aggregators, for example. Then they can really see all the signatures really fast. If we do this, then basically we have two steps in parallel. Like first is gossip sub, where validators send their signatures to each other. That's like 0.62 seconds for them to be able to fast confirm. And then, yeah, we spend another time well, like 0.83 seconds to actually create the final aggregation that goes into the block. Yeah, that's just some thoughts, ideas, numbers that we had during simulations and tests and calculations. Overall, as I see it, like the paths to fast aggregation, first 2 points, they kind of no-brainers, like we need to increase validator bandwidth, hopefully we can do this. Then accelerate signature and snark processing speeds, that's ongoing research, which everyone is doing here. And then my third point is like, my personal opinion is that we should somehow integrate the structured topologies into the aggregation pipelines. Something like, not necessarily grid, there are a bunch of other topologies, but yes, the topologies where we can actually take advantage of structure and not only rely on some random connections, which we actually do today for gossip sub. It has its advantages, but also given our very, our requirements for 4-second slots and this large number of signatures, which is very heavy, then we should do this, I think. That's all I had, thanks.
Hi, thank you for that. Just 2 questions, perhaps misinformed questions. First, what is the current topology style of the beacon chain?
Yeah, we use gossip sub, so basically we have, I think, 128, I think Raul will speak more about this later today, but 128 or so subnets, all of them use gossip sub, and they kind of perform this 2-layer aggregation, as I said, but they use BLS. Yeah. Basically, we have, the difference is that we don't make an assumption that they should have a very heavy machine to be able to aggregate. In this case, aggregators, we cannot just randomly select some validator to be an aggregator. I think they should somehow explicitly say that they want to become an aggregator, because they need to have, some other requirements than just some common validator. So there are some differences.
So for the structured topologies, did we consider using the braided chain web, which is based on the best known solutions to the degree diameter problem, and would that maybe be useful?
We can consider this. I mean, we can integrate this into our beam simulator if you, you can maybe elaborate more about this later.
Thank you.
In the past, there was some research around EPSub, and also improving gossip sub to diminish bandwidth requirement via choke and choke algorithm. Have you simulated this as well?
We were not simulating this, but honestly, all the improvements that I see for the gossip sub, they give some improvements, like maybe 10, 12, 15%, but we need much more. For example, we tested in our simulator, I don't want messages like to reduce number of duplicates, and it didn't really help, because once you send like, I don't want the message that someone sent to you, it's already on the wire, so you receive it anyway. I don't know, maybe we can explore this, but personally I do not expect much improvement, but
Okay, thank you so much, Camille. Okay, so now we're going to split into at least 2 groups. We're going to have one group stay here to discuss the proximity prize. That's a very theory-oriented group. And then we're going to have another group in the Borden room, which I believe is straight and right. I guess follow Ladislaus. And here we're going to have a discussion about DevNet specs. And if there's a topic that you really want to discuss as a small group, do advertise it in the Telegram, and then others can join you, and there's this space, various spaces. Okay.